Now today we'll see how you work with the switch statement. Now we already seen if you have a multiple of options for the user, then you can use a multiple if else, or you can use a ternary operator. Now more elegant way to do this is using a switch statement. So now today let's see how you work with the switch statement, what things you need to remember while working with a switch statement, and how is the syntax to write a switch statement. Now let's see how we just take an example of where we have a variable that gives you a number, and accordingly you give him the day of the week that corresponds to that number. Let's say int, and let's base our switch statement on this variable. So we'll write switch, and the switch operates on some variable that will be day of the week, and based on the values of this variable we'll have different case values. Now, and accordingly, as per the value of this variable, it will immediately shift to that case value that corresponds to the current value of day of the week. So we'll write different case values. Say case 1, we'll say. So what we've done is we've given a different statement for a different case value. So what exactly is the flow of this statement? Now depending upon the value of this variable day of week, it immediately search for a case value which corresponds to or which matches the value of day of the week, and accordingly the system shifts to that statement, and accordingly the flow will correspondingly follow. So in our case, the day of the week is 1, so the case 1 matches this, and the print starts from today's Monday. But if you just see what happens in this case, so it's printing all the case values. Now what this is happening, the case value where we match it will continue printing till the end of the switch, in case we don't assign a break here. So I'll just put a break here, and similarly a break with every case value. So this is why you essentially require a break with every case, with every statement that you have in the case, so that all the case statements, they do not mix. So now what will happen is, it will only execute the case statements that correspond to that particular value. It will not continue printing all other statements beyond the matched case. So let's again run this. So this is perfectly what we expected. Today is Monday, so in case I change this value to say 3, so now it will correspond to case value 3. Now today is Wednesday. This is what we expect here, and this is what we get. So what exactly is the flow? According to the value, it matches the case, shifts to that, executes whatever statements you make as a part of this case statement, and accordingly you get the output. Now what happens if you don't have any case value matching with the variable value day of the week? So in order to ensure that the loop doesn't print anything, let's take down a default case. So in case, let's first case what happens when you have a value that is beyond 7. So since this does not match any case value, so there is no output, so nothing comes up. So to avoid such a statement, to avoid such a case scenario where nothing comes up, we'll put down a default. So we don't even need a break here, because this is the last statement within the switch, so there's nothing beyond this, but here we'll need a break. Okay, right, so let's again test this. So it says enter a value between 1 and 7. So this is how you write down a switch, let it operate on some variable, and then accordingly you put down different case values, and the case values are matched according to the value of the variable. Now what things we need to keep in mind when we operate with the switch? Now first is, suppose I say int day is 1, and my day of the week is also 1. So can I take a variable here instead of a constant value? So you can't. So this is the first thing that you need to observe, that you can't use variables here. As you can see, the message says the case expressions must be constant. So you can't use variables as a part of the case value. So you need some constant value. Now since these are evaluated at compile time, so you can't have variables here. Now the second point is that the value that you pass to switch, it can't be greater than a int value. So in case I use float, I get an error. So it says you cannot switch on a value that's greater than an int. So you're only permitted int values or enum values. So we'll see what enums are. So as of now you can see that the value that you pass cannot be higher than int in magnitude. But can I use a char? Let's see. Now in case I have a char, there is absolutely no problem. So the only thing is that it won't match with any case value, but as far as the loop goes, there is no problem in writing a char value. So I can even match here with a char value. So char is perfectly fine. You can use an int, you can use any value that goes up to an int. You can use a byte value, a short value. Now let's get a step ahead of char. Now why not use a string and use the string value to match within the case. Now this is not an option that we had in earlier versions of Java, but starting with this Java 8, 7 and 8, we got a string that you can use within a switch, and accordingly you can have string values at part of case values. So I've just since we just dealing with strings, we don't know how these work and what exactly they are. We can just simply see that anything you write within a double quote is a string. So as you can see, I have just made a string called Monday, and now I'm comparing this to various case values. So I just change these. I'll say this will be Monday. Let's change this. So instead of the day numbers, we now shifted to the day names, and now we can use the switch to match the day name with the case values. And let's see what the result now is. Probably we'll be getting today's Monday. So there it is, we got today's Monday. So you got another option that you can use for switch, that either you can use any value up to an int to be the value that you can match with the case values, or you can use a string that you can use within a switch. So this is how the switch works. In case you've got a number of options, you need a number of if else, then a better way to do that is a switch statement. So take up a value that you need to match, and accordingly write different case for different value that you expect this variable to have, and in case you expect some value that could go out of all the case values, use a default that could match and accordingly give a output to the user that probably the value is not as per expected. And do not forget these break keywords. So in case you don't put a break keyword, the case value where it matches, it will continue printing till it encounters the end of the loop. Now another thing that you can have here is, even if you have default as a first part, even then it won't affect the output, since default will only match in case it doesn't match with any other case value. So same output. Now what happens if we have a number of case values that correspond to the same output? So if we have that this is a working day or this is a weekend, so what we can do is, for all cases, let's club the output. So these are all working days. So what we can do is that we can say the same thing, that today is a weekday, that this is a weekend, right? So in case you've got multiple case values that correspond to the same output, just club them like we've done, and now let's just see what happens. So this is a weekday. In case I change this to a Sunday, so this is a weekend. So this is all we've got for switch. Hope this clears off. Let's now see how we could use this in some another practical example.